Well, it'll be easier to figure out than not. Fuck. Okay, that's a great start.
That's fine.
So Transformers.
Yes. Because this episode isn't going to be just all Transformers, but we got to get this out of the way. We got to talk about this shit.
Mm-hmm.
We got to talk about how fucking wonderfully weird and stupid and annoying these movies are.
Well, and just
Starting
absolutely
with,
bad.
2007.
2007. Yeah, 2007 Transformers.
Yeah,
So
no,
I was still in high
absolutely
school.
bad. Like when the bottom line hits it, like
Yeah. I was. Can
Absolutely
I make the goal? Can I make the goal? Ooh, I saved it.
oh, nice block. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, like
well, that's also
like
the
I
downside.
remember because I was young when it came out, and so I was like, yeah, this is great. I love it. It's so weird. It's quirky. It's adventurous. It's not quite like the Transformers I knew, but it's all right. It's pretty cool. And then like I got older.
Well, and then that's
and
the other
like
thing too
I was
is
no
that
longer the
kept-
target audience.
right, and then you kept like, the movies kept coming out, so it wasn't one of those things that you could like safely leave in your
Look
like
back on.
quote unquote childhood. Well, how old were you?
Yeah.
2007 would have put you at what?
I was 13-ish.
13? Yeah.
So like target
Michael
audience.
Bay's age. So
Yes.
like
Michael Bay's target audience. I mean, like that's kind of the
yeah.
bottom line. Teenagers,
yeah.
young teenagers, not
Young
like 18,
teenage,
but like
young teenage
14,
boys.
13, 14, 15 age.
Yeah.
Which is really weird.
Yeah. And so like I was 17. That doesn't sound right. You're younger than me than that. No, 13. No, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, it was summer. Okay, yeah, so I was 17. And, like, that was also kind of like, yeah, I like Transformers, and it's funny and fun and whatever, and bullshit.
Right.
And,
You just kind of went along with it because
yeah.
like, that's what you're thinking at the time.
But like I said, it didn't get to stay back there. Like, the newest one came out this past summer. And so, like, I've also been like, hey, I've become different and better.
Well, you've matured.
I've become harder, better, faster, and stronger. And
you know it.
and yeah, but it's. Ooh, I murdered someone, and so it's very like weirdly surreal to go back and watch this, like the first movie, going like.
Well, because like we talked about it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you like. It's super easy to be like, oh, well, the first one was better, you know. But then you go back and watch it, and you're like, oh God, no, it's not. Like,
no, God, no, shut it off.
It's just as bad.
We talked about it. Like you start off with the movie, and you have like blackout, like at the military base, like landing and shit, and like that was like so fucking cool because like blackout transforms. I don't remember if that's
it's got the noise
at the very beginning, but
it's
got the noise. It's got the. All right, this is a little more serious. People are dying. Shit's getting blown up, and it's intense.
Military installation. It's very intense, and and then it's just like,
and then you're introduced to fucking Shia LaBeouf.
And so like does it start with, not that it matters, but does it start with that like in the Arctic thing where they find Megatron, and then it like cuts to. So like it kind of feels National Treasury.
I don't think so.
Or
I have to watch it again.
Yeah, well, because we were gonna watch it again, and then you told me the synopsis of 5, and we went, "Well, this is stupid."
I gotta watch Star Wars instead.
Yeah, literally.
That's pretty much how that conversation went.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we were gonna sit down, and we were gonna watch them all again, just because like.
No, we were gonna watch 1, 2, 3, then skip
that.
4.
I mean, I would still watch 4 just to like.
Just to have it, yeah. Just
to have it, but like, no, we kind of fucking gave up on that,
and
like. We're not going to be reviewing. We're not we are critiquing, but we're not reviewing. We're not going to talk about exactly what happened. But like, we want to touch on just like an adaptation from where Transformers originated, and then to this version of Transformers.
Right.
And
because like it's
just
not
how fucking weird the goddamn movies are.
Yeah, because it's not like, honestly, you know, sitting back, it's not like the cartoons are great. They're good.
No, God, they're campy, they're stupid, they're weird as fuck, and there's a lot of problems with them.
But it falls in the same vein as Power Rangers, and like the new Power Rangers at least tries. Campy. Yeah.
Yes.
The new movie at least
without
tries.
being excessive in some areas.
Right.
Like it tries to be serious. It tries to be like a legitimate like thing. It's just it's not Michael Bay.
Yeah. And so like so the cartoons are what they are, you know. And I still honestly though, I still love the 84 movie. Well, I want to say it's 84 because everything important happened in 1984.
Right. Well, because I always thought that, and then I saw it was 1985, but regardless.
No, you're wrong, but...
You're wrong. I don't know. Because I always thought it was 84, but then I saw something that was 85.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's 84 or if it's 85. Regardless, it came out mid-80s.
Yeah.
And, no, and that you're right, because that movie actually started to kind of bring together the serious tones.
Mm-hmm. Well,
like,
I mean,
fucking
spoilers.
So many main characters die in that movie.
Yeah, spoilers. Optimus dies. It's
spoilers.
Legit,
Ironhide fucking dies. Like shit.
Well,
like half
Optimus
of the main characters die in that movie.
Optimus dies at the beginning of the movie, not
because it's establishing like
Rodimus. Hot Rod
Rodimus Prime.
Rodimus Prime, and so like, but it's cool. Definitely like
I really like.
Look at this
movie.
giant opening battle, and not only is it like Autobots die, but like fucking. I don't remember how Megatron dies. Is it like a mutiny?
It is a mutiny. He's injured anyway.
Right.
He was injured from the battle with Optimus.
Yeah.
And when they were flying on Astro Train back to Cybertron,
right.
Him and a bunch of like injured Decepticons, Starscream's like, "We're starting a mutiny because we can."
And then Starscream gets killed.
I fucking love Starscream's death because after Unicron finds Megatron and turns him into Galvatron,
Leonard Nimoy,
and Frank Welker turns into Leonard Nimoy, and and he shows back up like Starscream just gets crowned as the Decepticon leader. And then, like...
Oh, and Galvatron shows up and
Galvatron's like, "Hey, bitch,
him.
watch this," and just incinerates him. It's just like... I'm trying to even remember the line, but it's along those lines of, like, "Hey, Starscream," and then he just kills him. Like, there's not even, like, a... Right? Yeah, there's not even a hesitation. Yeah. He just turns into a tripod gun, which... Improvement from his previous situation where someone had to hold him. Now he can shoot people by himself. And, like... He just incinerates him. Like, and that was, like... actually, like, when what is the human's character in that? Like, what Shia LaBeouf's character is supposed to be? What's the nickname?
I don't remember because Shia LaBeouf's character is the dad.
The dad, yes,
in the cartoons.
Because the kid, there's the kid that's like with Rod, Hot Rod.
Yeah, right. Because
the
dad was with Bumblebee.
Right, and when they're on the moon, and when Unicron's eating the moon. His dad goes, "Oh shit, Bumblebee, what are we gonna do?" And it's just like, damn, like this is like starting to get like really intense. Like,
right,
it had a lot darker undertones to it, and that's like, and I'm not saying that like it has to be darker for to be better. Like it really doesn't, but that goes to show that like it was starting to kind of like collect their thoughts a little more. They had more time to work on it. Yeah,
it became less episodic and more very like, oh, there's larger things afoot. And so then, well, then was it? I'm not. And again, this episode isn't entirely Transformers, but it's very like, it. Beast Wars was next. One of the series was next. I missed Beast Wars because I'm a heathen apparently. But like,
I just don't like the animation style.
I couldn't get into the animation.
But the concept is really cool.
But, like, Armada was super cool, and again, if I go back and watch them, they're probably, like, super kiddie, but I also do have the graphic novel for Armada, and that's kind of, it's IDW.
I just like Armada because it was, like, a rehash of G1.
Yes.
It was just, like, a new version of G1 with, like, the mini-cons and, like, what they could do. That was just really cool.
More stuff to the story, and so, like, and so, like, I liked these ideas. Oh, are they going to score? I liked... like some of that stuff, and then again you've got a lot more. I've heard what's the Transformers, is it Prime, the newer one
with
set in Detroit,
Peter Cullen again as
Optimus.
Oh no, wait, the 2D animation or the 3D animation one?
The 2D one.
The
I
2D
caught a
one was
little bit
not.
of.
That one.
It was
That
not
one
him.
was not with.
Cullen.
That was not with Cullen. Cullen
Okay.
was a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, the 2D animation was set in Detroit, and that one was really cool because it was just like, it didn't it do a throwback to G1?
I
Like, wasn't
think
this
so.
after G1?
Yeah.
Because like this Optimus was just like a reincarnation. He wasn't. Oh yeah, because he was like they all worked on like they were all like janitors like on some sort of like or garbage robots. It was, and then they like
It
he found the
used.
matrix of leadership and then like became Optimus Prime.
It was fairly similar to the It was fairly similar to the idea of the. Now the video games, from my understanding, have a more consolidated lore
Yeah.
as of late, and that's the recent book I
Right.
read, Transformers Exodus, was about that, and oh, I love it, and it's about how Prime was Orion Pax and he was a data clerk, and so
Yeah.
then having all of that, and like yeah, so it's yeah no that one followed in that vein. Prime did, but yeah, so they got
Yes.
pretty serious with them, and then like
They did.
and I don't know when. I want to say Transformers Prime was after the movies,
Yes. I'm pretty
um,
sure it was.
at least after the movies started. But like, you've got the
Yes.
movies, and so like as adaptations go, this one, a lot of the ones that people are familiar with is the book is better. But like
Yes.
this one is kind of weird because it doesn't. It's not based off the book. It's based it's based off a toy line, and then it's
Right.
based off of cartoons and
Cartoon.
video games
Yeah.
and other various graphic novels and comic books and things like that. And so like this one's already kind of inherently weird as it comes to like common
It's a
adaptations.
non-specific source
Right.
material.
It's not here's the book, here's the movie.
Yeah. It's not Harry
Um,
Potter.
and so like you've got a bunch of different lore to work with and a bunch of different types of things to work with. They could have done Beast Wars. They could have done the Minicons. They could have done. I
They could
mean,
have
they
done a
could have
lot.
even done G1. Like I said, how I mentioned earlier, his like, if you've watched the movies but not like the cartoons or anything, Shia LaBeouf's character in the cartoons, the character that he is the dad, and it's
Yeah.
his
Sam
son.
Witwicky.
Yeah, Sam is the dad, and
I don't know if
his
that was the actual
son.
last name, but it was at least Sam.
I believe it is, and I think that. Well, I'm assuming that's why they called him that in the in the movie, um,
Right.
in the live action in the Bayverse, and so like
The Bayverse.
you've got so that's a little different, but they still stick with basic things. Clearly you've got the
Yeah.
Autobots, you've got the
Decepticons.
Decepticons, Autobots are all cars, more or less.
Oh. Yeah, and the
Um,
Decepticons are all like
Kind of anything
military or
but military.
more
You know,
aggressive
more aggressive tanks, helicopters,
vehicles.
jets.
Yeah.
A lot of the jets were Decepticons, or started
Well,
out
shit.
as
Like
they became Decepticons. They were something else on Cybertron, and then they fell in line with
they're
Megatron
always. Well,
after something happened. Starscream was their leader, and like
yeah, Starscream. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, Thundercracker and all them.
I just could.
Um,
Oh. Shit. I cannot remember. I was trying to remember the last time we talked about this. Starscream, Thundercracker, and I
like
cannot remember the last
I
jet because there's three
cannot
of them.
know.
They all look the
There,
same.
there
They're just
was
different
there was
colors.
three of them in the book that I read. He was in charge of the movie the video game lore. He was in charge of the entire flight squadron worth of
Yes.
Cybertronians.
Yes, he
Yeah,
was. Yep.
yeah.
It's just I just remember there being three specific ones that, even in the game, even in the G1, like there's just the three
There's
jets
the
that
three of
all
them.
look identical, but
One's
they're just different
blue,
colors.
Starscream's red. Yeah, yeah,
And I think there's like a
um,
green one.
yeah. And so like you've got
There's a lot of source
similarities.
material.
Yeah, there's a lot of source material, and
Yeah.
it's not just like a book or a thing. You've got a lot,
Right.
and
So yeah,
so
they're. No, you are right. You could definitely tell with the first Transformers movie they were pulling a lot from G1
yeah, they were.
because what else would you pull from if you're trying to get a lot of people to watch it?
Yeah, you're trying to get people to watch it. You're trying to get other things, and then so it's like, okay, let's do this, and then and they went with Megatron being the tank. No, he's a jet, isn't he?
Yeah, he was some sort of flying
Thing.
ship. Well, because he never had a. He
I
was a
vaguely remember the
Cybertronian
toy.
form.
Right, that's true. They never had him in. That's right. That's right.
Right, but yes, he was like
Um,
a some sort of
he
jet
was a jet,
flying
yeah.
contraption
Which again, for a movie, better than being a gun that somebody
that
else had to
Starscream
hold.
holds. Like, who the
Yeah,
fuck
right.
is gonna? It works
Yeah,
for the movie, or it works for the cartoon. Wouldn't work for a movie. That sort of change in an adaptation, I think, works fine. Because he
yeah.
was a tank. He was, he's been so many different things.
Hmm.
I think it's an appropriate adaptation.
Right, and it makes it a more workable thing for a plot. But
Exactly.
like, so then you enter the whole. You've got the Transformers. You got the fun visuals, and like there's qualms with it, and then you've got you've got a lot of original voice actors. You've got a lot of new voice actors, and honestly, having Hugo Weaving as Megatron is never a bad
Oh
idea.
no, he did a
Um,
great job. Even though it wasn't Frank Welker, I was okay with it.
oh yeah, and then I believe Frank Welker came back to voice Soundwave in one of the later
Yeah,
movies. Yeah,
yeah, he does. He did,
yeah,
which was ended up
uh,
being perfect.
yeah. So that's cool. So you've got a lot of stuff like this, and then even having what I knew Michael Bay from was his obsession with explosions.
Yep, Michael Bay explosion.
Yep, and so like I knew about that, and even then I was like, oh, that's a good idea. There's a lot of explosions in this.
Yeah,
I'm thinking just, oh, that could correlate pretty well.
it correlates.
And
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
but then like the writing happened, and even from the get go, the regardless of how you feel about them in general, the stories about the Transformers, and like
Right.
you don't. It's about Sam.
It
Like
is.
it's oh man, it's been a bit since I've watched these movies, which I feel like I probably should have. But like it's
It's all right.
been it's a lot about Sam and a lot about his relationship and his relationship with Bumblebee, which is kind of neat. But like they don't Bumblebee doesn't talk, which I also did discover after at least reading this book that's part of the lore. Megatron ripped his vocal cords out.
Oh, that's
Um,
fun.
yeah, like you do. Um, so like that's a thing, but like they made like a there's no. I honestly couldn't. There's no character in the Transformers
Like
other
themselves,
than
like the actual.
themselves.
Yeah.
Like there's no real character to them except for Optimus Prime, who even by the fourth during the fourth movie when he's getting really upset at humans, like there's only so much you can take, but that's like the exact opposite of his character. Like
Right.
I believe at one point he doesn't give a shit if you like kill
Humans.
humans. That
Yeah,
was
I think
his.
he did get to the point where it was like collateral damage, whatever.
Yeah, and that's very much not him. And then like
Yeah.
and if it's not him, tell me why. But
Yes.
that doesn't
Build the
happen because
character.
it.
Don't just say like that he does this because what I mean. I guess if you go strictly from the movies, he always does kind of have like a problem with humans, but he
Yeah,
wouldn't. I don't think he would get to that point unless it like actually developed the character a bit more.
but all of his problems were humans. That was a good shot.
Yeah, it was.
A lot of his problems with the humans in the movies are like humans being ridiculous when it comes to the scene. It's always some humor filled thing or
Hmm.
some levity where like Optimus is like I'm literally the leaders of the last good Cybertronians that are left. There's like 10 of us, and I'm from a war ravaged planet, and it doesn't exist anymore because I had to jettison the heart of the planet out, so the bad guy wouldn't take it. And also, all the bad guys
Like
are
you do.
hyped up on Dark Energon, which is really corrupting them, and like it. None of his story is fun, and none of his story is like humorful, and they
Yet we gotta throw in these funny humans.
Yeah, like and that's why I loved Josh Duhamel,
Well, yeah, because
because
he was
he
the
would
serious
take
bit of it.
yeah, he would take the scene seriously. He would know the impact of. He was another soldier, like in
Yeah,
the context
he
of
had his
this.
like kind of funny situations,
Yeah,
like funny lines or funny situational things, but it
that made
was
him like
during
a
serious
person.
moments that like rounded him out. It was his reactions to things. It wasn't like, oh, gotta make that fart joke kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because
or
his
like
humor, I noticed, yeah, like whenever, if there was humor with him, it was never like the childish humor. It was more mature, I guess you would say,
yeah,
or situational humor.
yes, and like I don't know if like I just don't. I've never enjoyed the human part. I think there's a video somebody made where it like takes all of the humans out of Transformers. Like it's only the
That'd be great.
Transformers scenes, and it's
Well,
really
do you
good.
notice that a majority, especially the first three movies, the
Yeah,
majority of the Transformers movies is how humans react to the Transformers being there, or
right.
how
And if
humans handle the Transformers being there, and like that's
and
it.
and if you sat back and said that is the point of my movies, like
Then that works.
then that well, so we're talking about adaptations. Let's take um, um, Nolan's Batman series, right?
Yes.
The 7 billionth adaptation of Batman. Um,
Right.
his Batman is and after somebody explained this to me, I appreciated the series better and also didn't like it a little bit. Was the idea, and I don't know if I've told you this, but somebody's talking about how the idea of Nolan's Batman is it's a Batman that doesn't have anyone left, and he doesn't listen to Alfred. He doesn't
Right.
have he has no Bat family, which is
Yeah.
a really funny thing to say out of context. But like he doesn't have anybody keeping him in check. There's no other heroes. There's no other. There's no Robin or
Allies.
Nightwing. There's no he doesn't and he doesn't take Alfred seriously half the time. And so like
Yeah. That's why
and
Alfred's not like why Alfred leaves in
oh
the
he just
last
straight
movie
up
for
leaves. And
majority of
so
the
like
movie.
somebody was talking about how interesting of a perspective it was to to see what a Batman would look like without anyone left, and
Yeah.
to see him be excessively destructive, self-destructive, and like,
Very accurate, I
um,
think.
yeah, and so like taking so that's if I think that could have been if that was the idea that could have been
Behind
like
Transformers.
stressed. No, well in the Nolan
Oh.
series, if this was stressed a little more, I think I would have liked it. But like in Transformers, if they would have just really ran with the idea that this is a Transformers series focused on the humans, where we really want to see how humans react to Transformers. But
Yeah,
like
which is
you
pretty much how the movies were.
right, but you only get it through the perspective of like a 17-year-old kid, like 17-year-old
Yep.
boy, and like for the puberty jokes, and
Yep.
a soldier, and like there's not much there's not really continuity between each movie. You just kind of dropped in the middle and kind of like, well,
It's.
this I guess kind of happened in between.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's all right. Shia's a little older, you know. At least for the first three, Shia's character is a little older, and they're trusting Autobots more. And
Yeah,
like that's pretty much what happened between two, or the first two and the second two. Or
right.
you know, for one and two and three.
Yeah, and then there's like a
And
weird time jump in four, and then like,
well, it's just because
and
they're just
then
like, you want Sam Witwicky? Well, it's just too fucking bad.
yeah,
Because he's out.
and then you've got Autobots who are like willingly making threats against human lives and very much not behaving like Autobots. And
Well,
then
yeah,
yeah, and again, holding characters to a single moral compass. There would have been strife in the Autobots, but
gray
it's
areas
never
and
for
shit.
like good reasons. It's never militaristic ideas. It's never moral ideas about the Cybertronians and the fact that all of them are Cybertronians, even the Decepticons, and that like there's no real difference between them. It's just the
Factions.
biggest difference is Megatron wanted to rule everything because he
Yeah,
believed that the only way Cybertron would be safe is if he was the dictator. Um,
yeah.
and Optimus, who his ultimate catchphrase is "Freedom is the right of all sentient beings," and
Right.
so you have this
If you're gonna
clash
go with that.
against right, but then like you never get those. There's never a heavy morality, and I mean that's a huge trend of giant blockbuster movies. Is to
Well,
not
you got to make it basic and generic for the common moviegoer,
right.
which is
But
just
then like
fantastic.
there's other movies, and I had this thought just now, so I can't pull anything out of my hat. But like there's other movies that can do that a little better.
Yeah.
They're still kind of gray area, but like it actually like pretends to touch on things. Where Transformers
Right.
is just in essence what Michael Bay thinks is fun and what he thinks is funny,
Yeah.
and not much more than that.
What
You don't
I say,
get
like I said, racial
character.
stereotypes. You get young teenage jokes,
Yep.
as in like you said, puberty jokes. You get well, yeah, it's just like it's the mind of a 14-year-old or the
Yeah.
stereotypical 14-year-old American,
Yeah.
and that's what those movies are underlined with, which
Right.
is super annoying.
Yeah. And so like it doesn't lead to much. And like I said, I think honestly the biggest bit for me is that like and kind of part of this whole rant that we're on for this is the fact that like clearly we both really enjoy Transformers, right?
Well, yeah,
Like I love the hell out of the series. I love the hell out of the concept. I mean, they're giant robots that go from being like a vehicle to a person, and like it's
mm-hmm.
just a really neat idea. And like, but even more so, I love the characters. I love Optimus Prime. Megatron is super interesting. I like Starscream. I like Ultra Magnus. I like these characters, and you
Yeah,
don't get characters. You get Bumblebee.
tropes.
You get a little bit of Bumblebee, but after the
Oh,
first
just
one,
as far as the
there's not
characters
much
go.
more.
No,
Like,
no.
and then you get Optimus, but like barely, and
I say
then
Optimus is like the only consistent character in
yeah,
these movies, besides like Megatron,
yeah,
and he's just kind of like, I don't know. He's I wouldn't say inconsistent, but he's always uninteresting, I guess.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's just you
and
gotta
it's
you gotta have a rant. You gotta have it's not a Michael Bay Transformers movie without Optimus ranting about something at the beginning or end of the movie about morality, and like half the time you're like, did that happen? Are you
yeah,
sure? Like
yeah,
I don't know. Like they
yeah,
just
and then you kind of get Starscream being Starscream, but then like you
yeah
just you there's no like you get a little bit of Blackout, but how many of the Transformers are literally there as like props?
they are.
Like you don't
Which
because
that's what this whole
ultimately
I think this whole version is just humans with Transformers props, Transformer
yeah,
props.
because ultimately all of the Transformers are people. They're characters. They're they're
They are.
they're
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 fully
anyone.
fleshed characters, just like the humans would be.
Right. But like they treat all of them as if they're minions in a James Bond movie. Like
Yes.
they're just like Scorponok would be like a person. Even Grimlock had like speech,
Yeah.
like
But they
like
treat them such like
they're
mindless
just they're
robots.
machines. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's like a low end Terminator thing.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Like look at the what's the Terminators like T2? It's like the
Yeah,
T1000 or whatever.
yeah,
Um the way they get like chased down by these machines and that they don't really have a personality or anything like that. But like freaking the all of the Transformers do, whether they're Autobots or Decepticons. And I mean, I'm
right.
not saying that in the show, in the original source material, that they gave everyone, like there
No,
would be some
oh god, no.
Decepticons and stuff that would have, that are very much background characters, but you'd still have
Right.
your main characters,
Mm-hmm.
and you would still have main characters with personality. Like,
Yeah. I guess you do in the first one. I guess you do have like Ironhide and you do get
They
a
do.
little bit
Okay, I
working
was
with
just
them.
about to say, yeah, because like
Yeah.
Ironhide's the rough, tough Clint Eastwood,
Mm-hmm.
shoot 'em up kind of guy. Ratchet's the medic who has to make a joke about not knowing like sexuality of a human, or not like
Right.
not knowing it, but like just shit like
Right.
that. Which I'm just like, that's a Michael Bay line right there. But like,
Oh yeah.
and then you have Jazz, who's the randomly stereotypical black guy who ends up
Who
dying,
gets
which
killed
is
first? Yep.
interesting.
First. He's the first one.
Yep.
And it's like,
And then
yeah, yep.
Bumblebee, who's the young like underdog character
Right.
who's like
Because
along with the main character, and then you've got the
yeah.
kick-ass main character, well, main Autobot Optimus. And
Right.
so like the first movie I think does a pretty good job of like you get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
then
just
look
think
at
the. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you
I was
finish.
gonna say look at the rest of these movies. Like I can think of a couple of the Autobots in the later movies, but like fuck, I don't remember which movie it's from. I don't
Yeah.
remember what
Oh
their
yeah.
name was. There's the samurai dude, there's the dude with like a jacket, but he's a transformer.
He's a
Like
transformer. Yeah.
and
Well, and
like
like
you've
even
got
then, like visually, you couldn't tell them apart.
well no, because they're all like the background ones are all sleek and might be bright colors, and they're all sports cars, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like couldn't tell you their name, couldn't tell you what they do, couldn't tell you a personality besides tropes.
Right.
Like
Yeah. But
it's
I mean.
because that's what they become. The
Mm-hmm.
farther the movies go, because like I said, the first one does a pretty decent job of
Yeah.
establishing the characters as described, in the source material. But
Yeah.
as the movies go on, the only characters you get to know are the ones that you've already seen, or new ones who turn out to be bad guys. But you don't. All the others Autobots are all just background noise. They're
Right.
they're cardboard cutouts with tropes on them.
Mm-hmm. And like even, and I would argue like even a little bit in the first one, but like by the second one, why do I know as much about Sam's mom? Like why do I know more about Sam's mom's character than I do about like one of the Transformers who's like trying to like save his people? Like
Yep.
it's that weird level of like what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of all I gotta say about Transformers and
Well, it's
in
just the
regards to
adaptation. I
adaptation.
think yes, it's the on the note or on the level of adaptation. It gets like it takes a different route, just like you said with the Nolan Batman. They took a different route with it. They wanted to show a more realistic or a more loner Batman that doesn't have an actual like support system to help him
Right.
through everything,
Yep.
besides Alfred. And so in this, they went with a how does the modern day get affected by these giant robots and like these giant transforming robots, and how does this war affect them, which is cool. Whatever, I guess this is just the version we're going to go for. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's not quite the source material, but what is for adaptations,
Work with it. Yeah.
it's not my favorite version of it, but there's some good things about it, there's some bad things about it, but the adaptation translates kind of weird in some aspects.
Because like
And
I think at the end of the day, if you have a good translation or not good translation, good adaptation, and whoever's gonna say what's good or not, but like if you have a good adaptation,
in your opinion,
right? That like can in when okay, here I'll clarify a little bit then. When I say a good adaptation, either it's
quality wise,
fairly well, it could either be fairly close to the source material, like Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is to the manga. Like that's a fairly accurate,
straightforward.
There's stuff left out, but it's
and there's
pretty
extra
close.
stuff put in.
Or is it going to be a adaptation that's way different? And I'll go out in like left field and say Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, and say that it's way out in left field and nowhere near what the actual story was, but it is a coherent story on its own that at least me and my girlfriend find to be really good. Like it as a story on its own, it does its job of telling you what's going on and making the world a thing. And I think that's what the Transformers movies are really missing out on, besides the weird human writing and the weird Michael Bay shit, is that like the the retconning that we've mentioned about how like the worst thing, Transformers never been Earth in the first one. There's some old stuff, and then in the second one, no wait, the Fallen were here. No wait, in the third one, what was in the third one? It did it again.
Well, the second one.
Second one was the Fallen.
The Fallen and other, like the hidden Transformers, like
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh right. And then third one, they've been working with like random ass humans.
Oh
like,
right. Yeah.
Like the one dude's like father was in league with them.
Yes, and then in the fourth one it's like no they've been here since the dinosaurs, and then in the fifth one apparently Unicron is Earth, which is what you've told me. And
I can't say for sure, but this is what I was told by a friend. They're just like, so basically that Unicron is Earth.
Is Earth kinda. Or something, but the whole idea is that Unicron's already been, so it's consistently, even plot wise, it doesn't hold its own.
Inconsistent.
Yeah, it doesn't hold its own story together very well, and I think that's something that like beyond everything else that's wrong with it, even the plot of the adaptation that they're doing isn't good when it comes to the actual story
itself.
Yeah.
Besides the source material, if you take away the source material and actually just look at the story itself, and it does have its major flaws.
Right. And I think that's the whole idea of adaptations, and like what is the purpose of an adaptation is something we'll go into after this.
I say, but yeah, we're gonna take a short break and kind of talk about a little bit of a commercial break. One of them would be to check out jrcomicart.com. That's my website from all my art and comic books, and then you can also visit etsy.com/shop/jrcomicart to purchase prints and those comics I was talking about, actual like physical copies of them. So you can go on those websites to actually check out my art, and then
it's good. I promise.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
There's no bias on my part.
There's no bias, none at all.
Complete, yeah.
And then be sure to check out our YouTube channel, While We Play YouTube channel, where we're going to be uploading every once in a while. We'll be uploading video clips of us playing Rocket League or Battlefield or Destiny or whatever we're going to be playing, and we'll have YouTube videos on there. So be sure to check that out too.
Yeah.
So the purpose of an adaptation.
The first episode, I'm the guy.
You're the guy. And I'm the.
I just scored actually. Also, yay.
Oh, nice.
I didn't score. I knocked it into somebody and they scored.
But you still got the points for it, and it still said that you scored, so you scored.
So yeah, like, I think something that happens a lot with adaptations is this general idea that like it needs to be perfect to the source material, which is
right.
Hard, because I'm the same way. Cause
it's not.
What?
It's not necessarily. I say wrong.
Right.
And that is wrong.
Yeah.
It's not wrong, but the intention's there.
Yeah.
The intention usually is, well, that didn't happen in the book.
Yeah.
That's usually the most common version of this whole adaptation concern of the source material.
And the bit that gets to me the most, like personally, is that like especially if I'm really into it. So, like, first off, we talk about Transformers. I love Transformers. I grew up with Transformers. I think it's super interesting. I love robots. It's super cool. But, like, the biggest thing is I want to see something specific in an adaptation. And so, for me, seeing the Transformers transform and hearing the sound and all that stuff, that's what was really satisfying. But when it comes to like other movies, or other books, so if we take like Harry Potter, and you've got a really cool scene that you really love, and then it doesn't, and the movies are going to be a thing, and so you're like, oh my gosh, I get to see Daniel Radcliffe or Emma Watson or Rupert Grint get to like actually play out this scene, and you get to see this scene happen, and then it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and you're
I think
wow,
that's,
I'm really depressed.
I think that's part of the hard thing is that like you look forward to something happening. Yeah. And so whether it's the entire thing as a whole or the or say like what I shot like I don't know like we'll take like Ghost in the Shell. I was super excited to hear that they're making like a live action movie, and I was like, oh,
I wasn't.
Well, no, well, I was nervous, but like I was super excited to see maybe somebody like Rinko Kikuchi is the actress who played Mako in Pacific Rim.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, oh, that'd be really neat. And then no.
And then you're like, that's like do you want an American main cast for a Japanese source material? Right. Sure thing.
Yeah, and so like that, and that's like a casting adaptation choice, and so like that's kind of rough sometimes when you're like, oh shit, they cast somebody who's either I wanted somebody else, or at least somebody who's fucking Japanese to play a Japanese character,
but like, play a Japanese character,
right? But like, or I want a scene to happen, or I want like Optimus to be a character or something along those lines of like I am excited for a movie. I'm trying to look at my shelf to see what we got. Like Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Star Trek's kind of the like reboot kind of adaptation if you're gonna have like recasting stuff. Yeah. Is that it's an adaptation off the first series, and yeah.
Well, you had mentioned, and I'm going off what we had talked about before, was the Count of Monte Cristo.
Okay, yes.
And so, to kind of move it along with adaptations, and and I agree with your point that you had mentioned about never read the book of Count of Monte Cristo. Neither have I. The only movie I've seen was the more recent one with Guy Pearce.
Was there one before that?
Yeah, there's like an old,
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Errol Flynn age of movie.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And I had never seen it, but I'd only seen the more recent one.
Right.
And so, if I had read the book and then saw the movie, sure, I might be disappointed about here or there. But the fact of the matter that I got to find out about this book or the story more,
right,
when I wouldn't have without the adaptation.
Yeah.
And so you had mentioned like the fact that when you with adaptations you find out about things when you might not have previously. Yeah. Like the spread of like the popularity of it. Mm-hmm. And that's like the same thing for like Harry Potter. Like were you already reading Harry Potter when the movies came out?
Oh yeah. No, I had gotten Harry Potter I got Harry Potter when it came out. It was like a gift, but I never read it. But I was reading it before 2000.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I mean, with that, I probably would have known about it, but I wouldn't have known the story as well.
Right.
You probably would have told me about it. Maybe I would have read it. But with that, then all of a sudden, it becomes a huge hit. And it's not maybe exactly what, you were thinking, but then you can go, for those, who didn't read the book and just saw the movie, they wouldn't have known about it, so now you can go read the book. And so, adaptations it's an advertisement. Do help.
Yeah.
It's an advertisement, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really cool for, like, a bunch of stuff, like Ender's Game. I didn't know, like, even though we've agreed that, like, the, Orson
Scott Card.
No. Yeah. Yeah. We've agreed that he's kind of a terrible human being. But, like, I did enjoy reading that, and the only reason I read that was because I heard about it. Like I saw the trailer for it. Did I see the trailer, or I heard about the trailer, and then heard it was a book? So I was like, oh, I'll grab the book, and so I bought the book, read it, and like when I was like up north camping with some friends, I read the entire book, and then watched the movie after that. But in this case, I did read the book first, but I wouldn't have known about it without the movie. And so,
right.
I really enjoyed
it. Yeah, I just had something like that happen to me. February, I believe, 23rd, Annihilation is coming out. It's Natalie Portman and
Oh yes, yep, that movie.
others. Yeah, and it looks super interesting. And from what I understand, people are hauling it as like a new sci-fi classic, um, which is exciting. Um, but I was so into the idea of the story that I grabbed the book and I read
Yeah.
it pretty quick. It's like a 200-page book. It's pretty short. And so now I'm in this weird bit where like the trailer is almost entirely not in the book. And so it's one of
Which is like
those, but it's
kind of
that
concerning.
interesting thing. Well, it's that interesting thing where I'm just like, the movie is not the book. You know,
Yes.
it's stepping back and being like, it's the movie is out because somebody was like, hey, this book's cool. I mean, you always see it. It's based on the award-winning novel. Like, that's
Yep.
the idea. You want to get it out there that it was a book, and so
It was a
like,
book to read. Yeah.
and look at how well it worked. I saw the trailer, and so I went and bought the book.
You bought the book. Like that was exactly what it was intended for.
I'd never heard of it beforehand, and it's an
Yep.
excessively interesting story that I think is going to help sci-fi change a little bit. And I had
As
never
long
heard
as
of
the
the book.
movie is
The
translated.
entire trilogy's out. Like,
Oh wow.
it's not like it's a new thing, and
Yeah.
but the movie coming out, not even being out, the trailer coming out is what made me go, oh hey, this sounds interesting.
Well, and
let
that's
me look
exactly
into
what I did
this.
with Ender's Game. I
Exactly.
didn't
Well,
even
yeah,
see the
yeah,
movie. I just saw the trailer, or just
yeah.
heard about
And
the trailer.
you're like,
And it was like, oh, it's a
this
book. Okay.
this seems pretty neat.
Yeah. It's up your alley. You're intrigued by this type of book or this themes or the genre, and so that's what it's for. It's a really good advertisement.
One
A
and
really random thought I had was like how
yeah.
they do like Guitar Hero. We found
Okay.
out about Muse
Oh
through Guitar Hero,
shit. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and the fact
yeah. It
that like
was
Muse is was
Knights
such
of
a big part
Sidonia.
of our Knights of Sidonia, and so
Yeah,
Guitar Hero 3 was like same around like 2007, 2006, 2007,
it was something like that.
and we would not have known about Muse unless it was for Guitar Hero. And so
Right.
it's like along the same lines of like it's amazing what something that is done for entertainment and mainly advertisement purposes can lead
Yeah.
to something so impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where like I think adaptations are necessary to an extent.
Yeah, like there's some
And
stuff where
same
you're like,
thing
why are
for
they
like
making this?
reboots.
Yeah.
But like when you come out with like a redone movie of every 80s movie that ever existed, that starts to get a little old.
Yeah.
Like
And
doing sequels is fine, like Tron Legacy or like Blade Runner
right.
2049, but like when you're just like we're gonna do a new Goonies or something shit like that, it'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well,
I
and
don't know if they
I
are, but
think
I read somewhere that
yeah,
like
I think that's
people
what
were talking
enters the
about it.
weird realm of like movies themselves just need to be better. Like
Yeah.
like if they're going to say make an adapt something or remake something, or like we said, like if I wouldn't care even if they had changed the idea of Transformers and made it from the human's perspective. If they had made it good and like
Mm-hmm.
enjoyable, I don't know. I started watching Shutter Island today, and I knew I've seen it before, and so it was kind of hard to rewatch because I know what happens. So I understand the twist of the movie, and it's kind of hard to be like, okay. But I did see that it's based off a book. Never read the book, but like I was super absorbed in the movie when it came out,
Yeah.
and it's just that level of like, well, this is really neat, and then like half the time you don't even know it's based on a book, you
Oh
know?
yeah, exactly. There's so many of those. They're like, this is a book.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think a lot of it's like a mix of like it needs to be well done. I mean, frick, Shutter Island's what Martin Scorsese, and like
I
I
think it is.
think
Yeah.
yeah, and
Even
which
if
is
it's
fun.
not.
I just know he's a cool director. I think, but like I couldn't tell you what offhand. But I really like Leonardo DiCaprio, and Mark Ruffalo's kind of neat. And so like that's a cool part of it. But also, like, I think a lot of it's just sitting back and going, this is not the source material.
Yes. Yep.
This isn't. This
It's
isn't.
a separate entity that
Yeah.
is inspired by the source material, but is not meant to be a stand-in for the source material.
Right. Because then you're
And
just
that's
like,
what I
well,
think a
then.
lot of people. Oh yeah, just go read the book then.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of people get offended because, like, okay, there was someone that I had talked to that I had actually I think it was during high school, and I got talking about Star Trek to someone, and they were really excited to see the new Star Trek movie.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I think it was Into Darkness. And so
Right.
I was like, oh, cool. So you watch Star Trek. And they had only seen the new Star Trek movie at the time,
Yes.
2009 Star Trek. They had
Mm-hmm.
never seen anything else Star Trek related. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's cool. I was like, you should check out some of the other Star Trek. And they were just like, no, the old Star Trek's like super campy and stupid, isn't it? And I'm like, I mean, not in my opinion, it's not. But
Depends
and
on
so
on how you feel about certain actors
exactly,
and
and
such.
I mean, has the campiness to it. Like it's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of a part of it. But like when you don't, and I've done it, I'm guilty of it. Is when you don't give something a try, and just
Yes.
when you've only seen like, oh well, I've only seen Brotherhood, so I don't want to see the old FMA because I've heard it's bad. Like
Right.
you're like you're not giving something a chance, and I mean, like I said, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it at one point or another.
Yeah.
But it's when you maybe you don't know about the source material, or you like say that the source material is bad, and they're basically replacing the source material as better, or yeah, like the new version is better, the adaptation is supposedly better, without even seeing the original content. And so
Right.
like that like Star Trek, like saying like, oh well, the new Star Trek is so much better than the old one, but I haven't even seen the old one. I just know it's
Yeah.
better. And it's like
Yeah.
you can't compare. That's just comparing stuff you don't know. So that doesn't really,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't even make sense.
It.
So I think that's why people get so offended, because their mind automatically goes to, oh, you think that this is the only source, or this is the source material, and there is no other source material. So people are just like, oh, go read or like the book is so much better. Go read the book, because they're trying to defend something that already like that inspired this new thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they get like super attached to the new stuff, and since the old Kirk is not Chris Pine, like
Yeah, they're just like, it's not. It's
I
not
think
really.
I think a really um I think a really prime example of something. It's not an adaptation and it's not a reboot, but it is. Doctor Who is
Right.
this really weird show.
Adaptation, but not really.
Right,
It's a
but like
continuation.
it's a continuation, but they change out the main character.
Yeah.
Right, so like if you don't know Doctor Who, um, British show, sci-fi. The idea is that the main character, he's an alien, and part of his thing is when he gets killed, he regenerates into an entirely new person. It was initially done. The show started in the '60s. It was initially done because the actor was getting too old to remember his lines and stuff. And so, what they ended up doing, they didn't want to get rid of the show. They ended up saying, "Oh, well, let's just recast him." But they worked it into the show's plot. So,
Which I think is really clever.
which is super neat. And then it ended in the, I want to say, the '80s, the early '80s, late '80s. I think maybe '89. There was a 90-some movie, and then it got restarted in 2005, but they kept going. So it started, the newest iteration started with the Ninth Doctor. And so, like, what I find really interesting is it's almost in the same vein because people have their first Doctor. Like, that's something people say. And,
Yep.
like, the show even recognizes that. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, like, people have their first Doctor. And mine was it. My first was 10, who's David Tennant, but I didn't start consistently watching it until Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, so I really enjoy him.
I really enjoy him. He was technically my first Doctor, like
Right.
consistently.
Yep. And like rewatching it's kind of rough because I don't like the writing as much as I do with the 10th Doctor.
Well, sure, but
Right, but like him as the Doctor was pretty cool. But like I find it super interesting because you do run into that same thing of where like it kind of is source material because they're using continuity to like explain things. So like
yeah,
if a new person shows up, oh, just kidding, it's an old person from way back when, Um,
yeah.
but like it falls into that like I liked it better during my Doctor stuff, like the whole I like Kirk
Oh right,
over, I
Picard
mean even
kind of
even
thing.
Kirk over Picard or
That's his very
Chris
similar
Pine over
style.
Shatner. Yeah, and so like having whether it's between the same characters or between two different characters within a series, you have this weird hyper emotional attachment to certain
Mm-hmm.
things because you either grew up with it or you really liked the writing and it clicked with you at that part of your life or things like that. And so you run into really weird shit where like people really don't like certain doctors either because they did a bad idea or simply because they came after a really good one.
Yeah, they went.
Yeah,
They can't. There was the newer version after the version that you
the
like. It's like,
beloved. Yeah,
and it's like the whole I like the book over the movie. It's
yeah.
it's just purely because you prefer one version or adaptation or sequel or next part, whatever you want to call it, over
Mm-hmm.
the previous or
Right.
over the next.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of it just comes down to the whole. Well, then it's something we might talk about later. Do an episode on or some kind of idea of like if it's not for me in like a sense where like if it's a well done story or something because there's you can always complain about things that are done poorly or if people are jerks or whatever. But like if the show itself just inherently isn't for you, then it's just not for you. And so
Exactly.
then like if the prequel Star Wars weren't for you, then it's just they weren't for you.
Well,
I mean, there's groups of
it's
people
like
that
the show
completely
Gotham.
yes. Oh
I'm
yeah.
not a huge fan of it, but people like
No.
it. So
Yep.
cool. I just
Right.
it's not my thing. I choose
Right.
not to watch it, but I don't shit
Yeah.
on anyone else who wants to watch it.
Right.
Because I'm
Well,
just like,
especially
cool. It's
because
just not my favorite version of Gotham or
right,
Batman.
and I've never seen it, so I'm not gonna shit on it because like I mean I've seen like bits of ideas, and it's not how I wanted it to be, but
Mm-hmm.
like that in of itself doesn't necessarily make it horrible, and I think that's where like it comes down to the whole Transformers idea of if it was about people trying to get used to Transformers, then it's not what I was expecting, maybe not what I wanted, but I can move on. But since they're written poorly
Exactly.
and executed poorly, then
Well, you can
then
shit
I
on
can
it
be
for
like, hey,
you
what
know,
the fuck?
like we said, you can tear it apart much deeper than it's not the source material. You can
Right.
tear it apart for just purely bad writing, poor acting, poor this, poor
Yeah.
that, directing, whatever you want to nail it. People can still like it. Like that's the thing when it really comes down to is I don't really give a shit if you love those movies. They're pretty entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
They're not fantastic, but they're pretty
No.
entertaining. And so like if you like them, then just like them, be proud that you like them, and continue watching them.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like I think that's with adaptations, people get so defensive over this and that, and that's really
Yeah.
the bottom line. Is like if you like it, you like it.
Well, and I definitely used to be like that. Like I definitely used to be like, how dare this thing wouldn't. Well, like I remember one of my biggest qualms with Harry Potter, why I actually went to stop watching movies in theaters, was because they didn't. In the third movie, they didn't explain who Wormtongue and all of them were. Like
Oh, like his
the
dad
Mars
and
map.
like the actual group.
Yeah, they literally didn't explain who the people were, even though like
It was
that's a
important to
really
the
big
story.
part of the story. So like that's
Yeah,
that's something that like I don't like that. That's something that I get frustrated about. But then if you look at it like from like a writing perspective, you're doing a lot of assumption that people are knowing who's who. From the idea of an adaptation for people who've never seen the books, you're doing a lot of extra work making the audience do a lot of extra work trying to figure out who the hell they're talking about because you didn't
yeah.
you didn't tell people.
There is a jump, and there are. I'm trying to think. There's like another movie I can think of. I can't think of it right now. But there's other things like that where they almost assume, well, I guess it's some comic book movies. They assume that especially Batman versus Superman. That was heavy with it. It was about the whole like premonitions of the future.
Right.
It's like having stuff that's in it that like you're going off the source material so heavily that you're expecting your audience to understand it or to actually know it.
Yeah.
Which is fine because if I did, well, that's a great example. Like I don't know I didn't read the books. I mean, you've told me plenty of times, but I didn't know about the whole group of people, and so like, or like the people that came before Harry and like his father and their whole little group
Remus
they had.
and Sirius and them, yeah.
Right, but then like it applies the same way. It's just because you don't know it doesn't mean it makes it bad. But
exactly.
It can also
you clearly
by
didn't
itself
need to
you
know
might
that.
you might fuck around with the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
But
right.
I mean, bottom line is just if you want to know more, then research.
Yeah. Well, and you clearly didn't need to know that for the movies to leave an impact on you.
Exactly. No, that's 100% right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts on adaptation?
Not really. Go see Annihilation.
Yeah, like.
It looks good. Try this out. It looks fun.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else I was gonna say. I just totally lost my train of thought.
Okay. I'm hitting stop now.
We didn't do our outro.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point.
I'll cut it. It's okay. We'll cut this.
We completely thought that we had something to say that we forgot how to end the thing.
Well, how did you want to end it? You mentioned it the other day how you wanted to end this.
Oh. Wow, I don't know.
Okay, well, how should we end this? Because I'm gonna cut this out anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if there is a good way. Give them the benefit of the doubt unless they're made by Michael Bay.
What?
I said give Adaptations the benefit of the doubt unless they're made by Michael Bay.
Does that kind of summarize our thoughts?
Yeah, I think kind of.
Yeah.
Unless there's something so wrong with the movie that it doesn't function as its own story well enough.
Entity. Yeah, that's okay. I would actually like to finalize our thoughts. To sum up, I think the bottom line is I think for an adaptation to work, it needs to be able to exist on its own.
Yeah. The best ones are the ones that you have no idea that it's based on something.
Well, yeah, because it's not relying on the source material to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
And so that's where
it's become its own story enough that you can just enjoy it as it is.
Yeah.
And not go, oh, was there something missing? Or yeah.
It doesn't collapse the new version, the adaptation. It stays strong by itself.
Yeah, and if it's something that you super love, comic book movies are going to be notorious for this because they're based on characters people really enjoy. It's just kind of give it a shot.
Exactly.
Ignore the episode where I bash Marvel for an hour.
Right. But hey,
and go see Black Panther.
Yeah. Which we will see.
Right.
We'll see.
Or at least see it if it's not, rent it from rent a VHS of it.
A VHS of Black Panther.
Yes, because they will definitely make it.
Who the fuck would? I would actually applaud someone if they actually managed to do that. Right.
Okay, so yeah.
That kind of sums up Adaptations. Go see a movie.
I got run over.
You died. Fucking
give it a shot. Sweet, riding the really nice train of collected thoughts out on this one.
Derailed train of collected thoughts. It crashed so hard.
Oh.
Alrighty, well, I guess that does it for this one.
Yeah, I'd say so. Thanks for really taking the time to listen to while we play. I'm Joe.
And I'm Josh.
I'm less than certain about that.
I'm hitting stop now.